What's up, y'all? It won't always be this way. There's just a journey that you gotta be a part of. Y'all ready for unorthodox and untraditional or what, bro? I don't even know, dude. Sometimes I just freestyle music. And that's usually what I do, actually, when I make music. It comes from being a teenager, driving around in a car with instrumental beats playing and just ripping words over them. Yeah. So welcome. We're on In the Image Clothing Company Podcast, episode 131. That's what I mean, bro. Talk about untraditional. Anyway, it's very rare for me to actually try to play really well. I like to show the imperfections, bro, because a lot of people don't. Okay, here we are. Man. Yeah. Boy, it hits me. It's crazy. Okay, we're on episode 131 of In the Image Clothing Company Podcast. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Alright, I want to make it clear, man. Past few days have been rough, bro. In this way, trying to make content for In the Image Clothing Company. And it just hasn't gone smooth, bro. I'm going to say it in a way that can make sense to someone. I just haven't been able to do it. Alright? And I'm going to say it like this, okay? It just hasn't been able to work. It's crazy. It's actually crazy. Okay, here we are, episode 131 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. I think a big thing is I need to play more guitar. And I was saying this, I actually made a video that I thought was going to be episode 131 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. And I ended up posting it on In the Image Clothing Company Poodles. And what it was titled Poodle Parade Events to Come. And I talked about that. Okay, and we'll get into it. And if you know already, then you know, okay, about Poodle Parade events under In the Image Clothing Company. But I sat in this location, as I've been doing for In the Image Clothing Company podcast episodes. I played an intro with Little Red, the guitar here, my JG610R by Johnson, 3/4 size with nylon strings, because I'm Evan Strong and I do crazy things with nylon strings, as you've heard here in the intro. Okay, but I got part of the way through the video and I just couldn't speak, kind of like how I was a few minutes ago here. But what I ended up doing was really thoroughly discussing, it was like a 40-something, maybe 50-something minute video, a lot of what to expect at future Poodle Parade events under In the Image Clothing Company Poodles. And I'll talk about that, right, as I do each of the 4 sides of our company, and then where clothing sits. And then we'll get into this discussion, because this episode, as I said, it is titled... I might not have said it. I just feel flustered, and this is what I mean by the past few days. It's been like this, and in a good way. Just a lot is kind of doing what this title is. The title is it won't always be like this, and yeah, it won't. And we'll get into a lot of things, but one of the main things I will talk about is In the Image Clothing Company. It won't always be like this. It won't always look like this. It won't always be structured like this. Our videos won't always be, at least like things on the main side of In the Image Clothing Company, the way that they are now. I've been making somewhere between, on average, 25-minute to an hour-long videos for most of them. They're pretty long, and I go into deep discussions on the anatomy of the human body and clothing modifications, what clothing does to the body, how certain items of clothing affect what I label as body mechanics, because the human body is just a mechanical machine placed onto a rock in space, right? The human being on Earth. Now, the videos won't always look like that. I won't always be living where I do right now. I will have poodles, and so In the Image Clothing Company poodles will make so much more sense. Yeah, a lot will be different, and it won't always look this way. And so I'm going to get into discussing a lot of that, and then, gospel stuff as well. And this is gospel stuff, but, we'll talk about what we talk about. If the storage space cuts off, as it has, lately in past episodes of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, then there you go. If it randomly cuts, that's not me cutting something off the end that I didn't want to say or what. No. Just for some context in case, okay? But this is where we have discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ in the Image Clothing Company podcast, aka the truth of all things. But I want to say it like this, as I was just saying, and as I've said many times actually in previous In the Image Clothing Company podcast episodes. If you're discussing things that are just real and true, and you're just being authentic, and you're just discussing things as they are, you are having gospel discussions. It's the truth of all things. And so, yeah, okay, just to be clear, what it really is that we do here, I guess, under the podcast, because it's not so often that I'm actually sitting here reading from scripture, and, that's not needed to discuss God as he is. That's the point that I want to make. yeah, okay, and I've made the point, and I've said it, but I need to say it right now, because I know a lot of people don't really understand what the gospel of Jesus Christ is. They might think that I'm a religious person. They might think that I have something that I'm trying to convince them to believe in, and that is not the case at all. So just to be very clear, there you go, okay? Now, we have our main side of In the Image Clothing Company as another one of our fourths, and we allow the human body to work. We do it through clothing. There's a center line to the human being. There's a neutral in every joint. The sternum, the spine, the nose, the trachea, the jaw are in the center. On Earth's gravity, it just has to be centered, the human body. There's 2 feet opposing the center, gripping arches inward, keeping us vertical on Earth, okay? Gravity just pulls us straight down. Holy cow, out of transparency, I actually tried to make episode 131, oh my gosh, before the other video that I just talked about, and I made it. I made the whole episode. And that's the first time that I've ever deleted one before I posted it. And it's not because I said anything wrong or bad, but it just wasn't supposed to be what it was. The information was valid, and there was a lot of good discussion in it, but I've been having, like I'm saying, just a hard time the past few days doing this. And, you know, there's an episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast titled Do It Anyway. And a lot of times, you know, we're being like hit with things that are excuses or reasons to not do something, things coming up, deterring us or trying to not let us do what we need to do. But if we know what we need to do, we just need to do it anyway. And so there's a lot that's been coming up. Like, I haven't been able to fully speak. I keep choking up on things. Part of it really is my body adjusting. Part of it is my hand on the right. I can't close my hand all the way. This is not an exaggeration of me trying to do this for those of you in visual plus audio, right? In the Image Clothing Company podcast can be viewed in that form, but then also audio only. I cannot close my hand all the way because there's excess bone that's been built up between my knuckles of my right hand from years of my right hand being lower than my left and more externally rotated and farther away from my body's center. The things that we talk about under In the Image Clothing Company, right? On the main side with the anatomy. And that's why, I mean, I couldn't exaggerate this. I don't know how I could, I mean, if you can see what I'm doing, I'm trying to squeeze my fingers together with my left hand right at where my knuckles are at the base of my fingers. But see this? As I rock up and down over the knuckles of where my fingers meet my hand with my, you know, squeezing it with my left hand, the fingers go like all over the place, in and out, because the bones have just grown excessively wide from being used in like a flat position for, you know, one of the big things. Like, look at my pinky. It's not a joke. Let's see if you can hear this. And this is probably the extent of what this needs to be. I don't know if that's how I meant to word that. What I mean is the episode that I just said that I filmed, a lot of what I talked about was gravity. I titled it, It's Not About an Image, It's About Gravity. When it comes to the human body, we're not trying to get ourselves to look all perfectly symmetrical for like some attractive type reason, but you have to be centered on Earth's gravity. Look, you can see this. I cannot squeeze my fingers together. There's just excess bone built up, especially in the pinky finger. I made two videos, like an original one and then a secondary one to that, titled "The Pinky Finger Affects the Entire Body." At the end of 2024, sometime last year, you know, a little while after just the very founding of In the Image Clothing Company. And the pinky finger does affect the entire body. I talked about the importance of fingernails, and they have to be entirely supporting the tips of our fingers. That's why they're there. Otherwise, we can't have our, what I call hand arches, right? Like the arches in our feet. We also have hand arches. I'm showing these things. For those of you in audio only, that's why it might sound the way that it does. If you know, it sounds like I'm kind of moving around from side to side where the mic is, and if you can tell that I'm like speaking slower. Oh, well, let me show you my left hand versus my right. This is not a joke. And this is so good. This is what I needed. As in, this is what God needed me to do. A lot of what that episode was that I ended up deleting, that really was episode 131. It was talking about these things. look, I mean, I couldn't make this exaggerated. I couldn't make it something it isn't. Like, you can see it, and I'm so grateful, again, as I say, for the gift of video. But I made a video just a few days ago titled Patterning in the Right Hand. And I've made one, patterning in the wrist, and I showed my wrist, and it's just so different on the right than the left, and it has been for decades of my life, and worsening as patterning just increases in my body. And then I made a video yesterday titled, patterning around the ear. Talked about the sternocleidomastoid, this muscle that comes from the collarbone / right where it meets the sternum, up and to the base of the rear of the skull, and the rear jaw, the lower part of it where the scar tissue gets built up and it hits against that muscle, and just the need to have our body symmetrical. Okay, external rotation on the whole right side of the body in so deeply ingrained pattern, right, in such deep patterning for years of just clothing imbalances. I mean, you can see this. I couldn't exaggerate this. I couldn't try to make it up. I couldn't try to make it seem like it's worse than it is. And again, that's why it's such a gift of the timing of when all this has been not only filmed, but just made it all, documented it all, while I'm going through these adjustments. Really, it's just ridding of scar tissue, ridding of bone spurs. The bones are just bigger I mean, look how big my right hand is compared to my left. I mean, this is just as real as it gets, right? As I say. So, yeah, I mean, that was my left wrist that cracked. I just want to make this as real as it gets. Meaning I want to show as much as I need to. Not only just doing these things behind the scenes and talking about them, but that's why it's so cool that you can see this stuff on camera. I mean, it's unreal the amount of width of my knuckles on my right hand. I mean, look at where the tendons in the back of the hand come up into the knuckles here at the base of the fingers on the right versus the left. And just look at the spacing difference. I mean, it hurts. So what I've been doing, and I know this sounds nuts, but you would have to, unless you had surgery and they cut out the excess bone. I've just been grinding my knuckles together like this, taking my left hand and wrapping it around my right hand where the fingers meet the hand at these knuckles that I'm showing are just so much too wide. It's unreal. I mean, I do the same thing with my left, and again, I can't exaggerate this. I love that this is documented. My pinky comes out a little bit as I do this, but I mean, it works on my left. As in, I can just squeeze my hand right around the base of my fingers, and right above the knuckles and right below them, and the fingers don't splay out all strangely. And my right hand just does. I mean, look at this. I'm not exaggerating. I couldn't. I mean, you can't make that happen with just a physical body. Like, I mean, you can see the size difference, bro. It's nuts. I mean, it is shockingly different. I mean, like a full half a finger's width wider on my right hand. Just the hand itself than the left. It's crazy. And so this is what I mean, right? When there's the episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast titled Willingness, and I was just, crying and like shaking and freaking out about just how much I've gone through and had to get my body to work the only way that it ever could. There's only one way the human body could ever work for everybody ever. It just can only do the hinges, rotations, the levers, the pivots, the operation that it does. It's just a machine. And so we put ropes on the body with drawstrings and with shoelaces. And we put clothing on our body that's just oversized and imbalanced and pulling our body out of its only center. Okay, I'll further the intro. I got, partially discussing the main side of In the Image Clothing Company, which is what I'm still doing right here now. But yeah, we have clothing placed on us, and the center line has to remain. Oversized clothing in itself is an imbalance. It falls to the dominant side and it just pulls the whole right side if you are right-hand dominant, because 85% give or take of the population of the earth nowadays are. It'll just pull your whole right side away from your center. Then everything will externally rotate, right? The hands are essentially the shoulders, as the feet are essentially the hips. So rotating outward or external at the hand goes all the way to your shoulder. And then all the muscles that go from your shoulder into your center line at your sternum and your spine. Same with the feet up to the hips, and then all the functionality in the hips, okay? So shoes need to be tied even, which we'll get to when I talk about where clothing sits, but over toward the inside on both feet. And I wasn't doing that till I was 24 years old, bro. So patterning like this in my right hand, 20-something years of knots, twisting the right side of my body away from its center and just excessively opening my hand. We also have cell phones at this time, and I've had one for over 10 years, and they're flat, and the human hands are round. I talk about it, right? Well, let me go here, okay? In the Image Clothing Company Music is another one of our fourths, and I show how to size and set up guitars for this very reason. The human hands have always been flat. They're what designed guitars, and there's often flat fretboard guitars. And I played flat fretboard guitars, I played ukulele, and those are flat as well for quite some time. Okay, it's been about 3 years, a little over, that I've played guitar, and I've played ukulele, just, dabbled in it. Before then, there was a decent amount of time that I did. But that's why I have nylon strings on a steel string Johnson JG 610R 3/4 size right here, because it's rounded, but then I play nylon strings, and traditionally nylon string guitars, at least back in the day where they started from, they had a flat fretboard, but your hands are round. Look at this, the hand is round. But also look at when I do this, my right hand, I can't even close my fingers. This is amazing to document. This is what I mean. I say the phrase often, it's as real as it gets. And I say the phrase, clothing is the only fix. Truthfully, it is for human beings' physical problems. I'm spitting, this is so real. Internal things even, because it travels into the whole body. It's not just pain, but pain is just your body telling you that there's something wrong with it. Okay, it's just your body's way of communicating with you. So, anyway, this is no joke. I literally cannot even actually close my right fingers together because the knuckles are just hitting into each other. Well, listen. I'm almost certain you can hear that. Well, and if you see me do this type of thing, oh gosh, that's my right one. The left one only did it very, very slightly, but my right hand making that sound. On In The Image Clothing Company Music, after I've played guitar, I'll just kind of like do that, stretch my fingers out like that, and my right hand, I can't close it, right? See what I'm saying? Because if your right shoulder's low all these years, now your right hand can close. But the hand is essentially the shoulder. That's why I show how to size and set up guitars the only way the human hands could work. Because now your shoulders are damaged, and you're going to physical therapists and chiropractors and all sorts of who cares, because it will never fix you addressing your shoulders if your hand is just altered. Because there's only one neutral position for everything in the body, right? The neutral wrist, the neutral jaw, the neutral spine, the neutral shoulder capsule sitting position, which means the neutral collarbone height, the neutral front to back of the balance of the pectoral muscles and the front delts and the rear muscles of the body, right? The trapezius, all three of them, the rhomboids, the rotator cuff, the tricep and the bicep also go into the shoulder. The latissimus dorsi goes into the shoulder. You've got the sternocleidomastoid going into the essentially shoulder because it's the collarbone, and the collarbone just goes to the peak of the shoulder, which is where I talk about, right? When I talk about where clothing sits, which I will, is the peak of the shoulder. Okay, just the end of the collarbone up here on top of our shoulders. So all this is happening at the shoulder, and if you have your hand just unable to close, then your shoulder will just have to drop. Well, I'll finish that, but I'll explain what I mean to close your hand. But really what it is so many years of clothing imbalance, having your shoulder be dropped, always working in a position like this where your shoulder is like however many inches even lower than your left on the right, then your hand on the right side is just going to be open because there's just only one contracted, right? Muscles only contract, a video's title under the main site of In The Image Clothing Company, but there's only one contracted position for muscles. There's only one angle that they can just pull in from their two endpoints at their insertions, okay? And they just pull together. Clothing stretches sometimes nowadays. It didn't even happen decades back and then ever before then. Stretch in clothing, it goes the opposite direction of the only way that muscles could ever work. And just stretching your body as well is opposing the muscles working. Their only workings is closing, okay? Even though we think of extending our arm, that's the muscle on the back side of our arm. Really, there's 3 of them. Triceps, closing. And that just pushes the arm out, right? But even that terminology, there's no such thing as pushing. Really, a push, like a push-up, is muscles contracting, meaning shortening. The pectorals here, they shorten, as well as the triceps back on the back of our arm, they shorten. The deltoids, they shorten. And there you go, you're pushing by contracting muscles. That's just the only way the body works, okay? So this is what I mean, and I've been saying it since the very founding. My name is Evan Strong, and I understand the human body's anatomy in depth. I talk about things as they are, right? And I do. In the Image Clothing Company. That's what I mean. That's why I've said that. Not some kind of like claim, not some kind of like, believe me and don't listen to the other people and pay me money. It's no, you're being, I don't want to say lied to, but given false information. If anybody ever tells you to stretch your body, okay? I don't stretch. I do this mobility like this, not because I'm stretching, but I'm just showing you cannot stretch into God-given ranges of motion. It's just a range of motion. And if it's not there, something's inhibiting it. Take away the thing inhibiting it, and then it'll just work. Because as the episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast states, designed to work is how the human body is, okay? God made this thing to actually take us across the earth and operate, okay? Not to sit here and use technological things in a stationary position that didn't even exist until just a few decades ago. There's been human beings on the earth for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And now it's been like, a few tens of years. Our lifestyle has changed so much. People didn't stretch in the past. People didn't run in the past. People didn't do these things because there was no need. They just used their bodies the only way they're designed to because they had to. Things didn't get delivered to their doorstep, and things didn't just, appear in ways. But you had to do everything for yourself. Otherwise, it wouldn't happen. Okay. This is as real as it gets. This is the whole blunt, bold, raw, and real In the Image Clothing Company. This is the whole don't believe us, but listen to what we say, because I discuss things in such depth to where there's no dispute. This is the whole, yes, there's an episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast titled Running, and just everywhere that I talk about it and say that running is damaging to the human being, but then you've got professionals out there, quote-unquote professionals, they just don't quite know what they're talking about, which is another episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast's title, You Don't Know What You're Talking About. It's not some kind of offensive thing that I'm trying to say, but it's the truth. If it's the truth. If you don't know what you're saying, stop it. You're misleading people, and this is the whole thing, man. It's what I just said. Don't believe me. Never just believe Evan Strong or In the Image Clothing Company's information, but try it. It works. That's what I mean on episode 2 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. Truth is truth. It is. There's no dispute to things as they are, unless you're making something up or lying. That's it. Okay? Things are just what they are. And what my right hand is so much wider than my left. And no stretching's gonna fix that, right? I'm not gonna stretch or massage out my forearm, and I'm not trying to mock people if you don't know. But what I am saying is don't overlook clothing because it doesn't make sense to you at the time if it doesn't. It's the only fix. It's the only fix, okay? Keeping short sleeves short. A video under the main site of In The Image Clothing Company. If your short sleeve is not so short and it's actually touching your forearm, your hand's going to just open. In order for your hand to contract and your shoulder to elevate, meaning contract the muscles on the top of it, the upper trapezius, okay, to lift your shoulder, pulling your elbow then into your side, because muscles like the upper trapezius and the mid trapezius, they don't pull up only. Well, the mid one kind of pulls in mostly, but the upper trapezius pull up and in. So internal rotation is just getting the body closer to the only center line where the strength lies in the human being, right? I say it like this: you hold something of just a light little weight in front of your body right in the center, it's not very heavy. And if you pull your arms out here like this, all of a sudden it gets so heavy and it's oh my gosh, but it's the same weight. And then your body externally rotates. Internal rotation is just to the center of the human being. It's just how the body mechanically works. There's no opinion or way to approach it. That's what I mean. We don't have opinions here. There's nothing to believe. I just show you how this machine operates. And it's weird that we don't know how our own bodies do. But I didn't until, right around the time I founded In The Image Clothing Company. That's like 24 years of life, give or take. So if you don't know, you don't know. That's fine, right? It's not their fault is an episode of In The Image Clothing Company podcast. If you don't know something, you can't be held accountable for it. That's what we read in Scripture. That's why a motion like this over here, there's a painting of Jesus Christ. We can't know something if we don't know it, and that's why we're here on earth, is to not know a lot of things and be content with never knowing everything in this life. But things are just what they are, regardless of if you know it or not. You don't get to decide that you're going to stretch your body and have it help you. It will actually only damage your body. Other than very, 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 very specific times and places. I say that, right? Times and places for things, but muscles only contract. So that you're going the opposite direction of the only way they could ever work if you're stretching them. And I get ramped up. I get worked up. People probably think I'm all opinionated, right? No. I'm just trying so hard to share what I need to. We're going to have poodles. I'm going to have poodle parade events. I'm going to have a fun time hanging out with dogs and people, and we'll talk about it, okay? We're still in the intro. In The Image Clothing Company, Poodles is another fourth of us, where we specialize in purebred standard poodles. We will be breeding them. We will have our proper breeding program under In The Image Clothing Company Poodles, registering the dogs through the American Kennel Club, and in addition to that, just advocating for a lot of things, okay? Poodle parade events where we get together with purebred poodles of any size and or poodle mixes of any size. We'll have ones called like Clean the Creek events where we go clean up litter and debris in rivers and water areas in the state of Utah here, the United States of America. That's where we're based as In The Image Clothing Company. Wherever else we end up doing them, but this is where we are based. And, poodles love water, at least they were bred to, because they were bred to be waterfowl retrievers. And so having the dogs in and around the water and getting dogs used to water that aren't, right? And a lot of these things we'll do at poodle parade events, but then also just talking about letting dogs stay natural, which is our slogan for In The Image Clothing Company Poodles, okay? But dude, this is what I mean. It's as real as it gets. And that's what that video ended up being that I was going to turn into this podcast episode. Poodle parade events to expect. I had this countenance in that video that was just like, this is unreal. We're going to do so much for the environment, so much for dog owners, and just truthful information on how to be a good dog owner, how to have a healthy, long-lasting, long-living dog, that has energy, and, so we do a lot. So we've got on InTheImageClothingCompany.com, human being clothing, dog products, staying centered, fitting correct, made from 100% natural materials, where we can with dog products on the natural materials, right? We need to buckle them or whatever it comes to being. So some things might not be like entirely like natural materials, right? And that's understandable. You just have to have a way to attach it the way that we have things nowadays. Okay, but there we go. In The Image Clothing Company Poodles. That's a pretty brief rundown on it, but it's going to be just huge. And so what I'm saying is all this is as real as it gets. And I know that a lot of people see In The Image Clothing Company right now. Well, I'm going to say it like this. I know that not a lot of people know about In The Image Clothing Company right now. But what I do know is the people who know about it don't really understand what it is. And that's fine. But that's why I'm so bold about, well, just that it is as real as it gets. But then the big thing is it's going to be a testimony to God, a testimony of God. Because I cannot decide this stuff. I can't choose it. I can't make these things up. I can't make you believe nothing if I'm telling you not to. Well, regardless, if I told you not to or didn't, or if I tried to get you to believe it or not, they just are what they are. Truth is just truth. There is nothing besides truth, other than lies, other than flashes in the pan, things that come and go so quick and are pointless, okay? So, all of a sudden, like, my fist is through a brick wall, right? I mean, because I'm so worked up. I'm not upset. I'm just passionate, because this is the only way your life will physically change when it comes to the only way the human being could ever work. It's clothing, okay? It's nuts. And it's crazy because you've got people out there preaching about diets. You got people out there talking about stretching, yoga, breath work. They're doing all these kind of whatever, and who cares? Workout routines, cardio, weightlifting, and then all the mixes anywhere in between. Not only that, but mixed martial arts, brother. You're doing whatever you're doing to try to get your body to work. The key word is allow. God designed it to work. You just got to get out of the patterning and stop altering it. We're using things like ropes, okay? Which I'll get here now, where clothing sits. Tops that we wear, I normally start with pants. I'm going to talk about tops. They have seams on top of our shoulders. But our shoulders only ever work just mechanically. No opinion, no body shape could ever change it. The way that the musculature inserts to the skeletal system, and the human body is about the skeletal system because there's no point in muscles unless there's something for them to move, okay? The shoulders only ever work behind our head. So the seams of our tops have to sit evenly behind the peak bones of our shoulders, which are the other end of the collarbone from down here in the middle at the sternum, okay, where the sternocleidomastoid that I talk about gets so inhibited, comes down and connects, okay? The collar should ideally fit above our collarbones of our tops, okay? The dreaded collar seam modification under In The Image Clothing Company is one of our videos, yes. We just talk about that often, okay? We don't have a video titled that exactly, but just the dreaded collar seam. We have multiple of those. And keeping collars centered is another video under the main site of In The Image Clothing Company. I was trying to make one today titled Collars Need to Be Snug, or something along the lines of that being the title, right? But I couldn't do it. And it happened like 4 or 5 times in the past week and a half. I've gone over to, outside where I've been making these videos, and I've been trying to make videos, and I just get stopped. The words don't come out. But now here I am making this episode of In The Image Clothing Company Podcast, episode 131, titled, It Won't Always Be Like This, because it won't. And I'm going through a lot right now. I'm not complaining about nothing, but I'm just saying, it takes a lot, man, to get to break up bone mass that's just excessively grown. This is what I mean, bone spurs, like on the Achilles tendon on the right foot, on the rear of the skull right here, on the right side of the head, on the elbow, and along the outside of the right forearm, on the crest of the pelvis on the right side. You know what I mean? Like the shin up the right side of the body, all the areas that you could potentially have bone spurs. Even this thumb joint is excessively large, and a lot of that's what we're using our thumbs for nowadays as well, but it just wouldn't happen the same if our clothing was centered. We would just know that, holy cow, we're using things that are so unnatural if we just, because we're doing everything within clothing. Clothing comes first before anything else external that we ever do. So it is about clothing, and it always will be, never could change. And it's just truth. Now, let's get into finishing talking about where clothing sits, because the edge seams of our tops should just be as close as we can get right to where the ball and socket joint of the edge of our shoulder is, because otherwise it just can't work. Okay, and again, I wore oversized clothing for so many years, it damaged my body, but that's what I mean. It'll fall to your dominant side, and now your shoulder's so inhibited, and now your hand can't work because your shoulder isn't working, and your hand is essentially your shoulder, okay? And so now you get built up bones in your hand, excessively wide because your shoulder seams have been so far off to your right side for so many years. That's how it works. That's why it happens. All right? Before you ever hold anything in your hand that just doesn't fit, because there's a video on the main side of In The Image Clothing Company titled Things Need to Fit in Our Hands. They're meant to close. Muscles only contract. It's dumbfounding. I'm not talking down on people. I didn't know either. It's crazy that we as a society don't know. It is nuts, dude. So that's where my passion's at. That's where it comes from. I'm just a passionate kid anyway, but I know what I'm talking about. Don't believe me, but it's the truth. Gosh, I'm so excited for the poodles. I'm gonna just keep saying that. All right, so the pants that we wear. Well, yeah, tops need to be waisted as well. That's another video that I made in the fall of 2024. Close to the very, very, very founding of In The Image Clothing Company. Tops need to be waisted. Our hips have a hinge, right? We hinge forward and back, kind of like a bow at our hips. Our tops need to stop right there, as close as we can get. And yeah, that's another thing, okay? I don't talk about those things all that often, but it just is what it is, okay? That's why my button-ups sit the way they do. There's only 5 buttons on my button-up shirts. It starts right at my collarbone base, and it ends right where my hips hinge. That's how In The Image Clothing Company button-ups will always be. And you'll just see as time goes. Don't take my word for nothing, bro. I mean it. Please don't. All right? But pants need to be entirely above our hips with the waistband, so there's no restriction to the functionality of the hips. Okay? But I wore pants on my hips with a stretchy belt and drawstrings tied in balanced and just, twisting my whole pelvis for years. Okay, the slipped lap knot is what I show. Always tie the tail ends to the inside, to the center line of the human being. Everything comes to the center. But for a drawstring knot, that keeps our hips entirely horizontal. Okay, as the founder of In The Image Clothing Company, me, Evan Strong, that's what I show. That's what I have found to use. That's what I'm using right now on my pants, okay? I put drawstrings in pants that I buy, and I modify just about every single thing I ever purchase to wear. You have to. It's crazy how much imbalances are in something we place on the human body that has to stay centered because of gravity. No opinion. It's nuts. There's 2 sides to the human being, okay? Even just the nostrils alone, right? I mean, there's 2 sides to the body. So with our pants above our hips, the waistband needs to be slightly higher in the front than the rear. So things like keeping things off the spine, which is a video under the main side of In The Image Clothing Company. We've got like 220-something videos, by the way, at least on the main side of In The Image Clothing Company. They're all purposeful and intentional, and I know people just overlook them, the people that do know about us right now, but then they're living in pain. It's whatever, it's your choice, but this is what I mean, just wait. The fruits of the labor. I've put in so much work and seen very, very, very little like outcome on like the opposite end of this, like on the company end of this. In my own life, my own body, I've seen immense changes. But as far as like spreading this and sharing this as a company, yeah, I mean, I've got no kind of like external return from this yet. And we're in this deep. I put so much into this as of today's date alone. I mean, we're just still going for the rest of my life. Okay, this is my lifelong thing. Okay, In The Image Clothing Company and Evan Strong R1 is one of our podcast episodes under In The Image Clothing Company Podcast. Okay, now when we get to, oh gosh, it's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, so I show how to keep pants higher in the front than the rear. But just keep things off the spine, right? If there's a stitch in the rear of your pants that hooks your drawstring in, get that stitch out of there. The drawstring needs to be able to move freely in there, and then the pants will just be able to sit higher in the front. They just naturally will. That's just the angle that'll happen because, they'll come out in the waistband in the front, the drawstrings, in the center of the waistband, and then in the rear, as long as they're not stitched in, it'll come up to the top of the waistband. So that'll just sit it in an angle that's higher in the front, naturally. That's just how it'll work. And that's just how it always was until modern design changed and they started putting so much excess stitching in things and they invented these unnatural materials. Okay. So 2 things we have as prerequisites under In The Image Clothing Company. Firstly, we lace and tie shoes as human beings. Shoes need to be laced with what we title In the Image Clothing Company's shoelace technique. We're just weaving a rope across the top of our human feet. When we put laces in our shoes, there's only one way to do it that's shaped the way that the mechanics of the foot is. Okay, that's it. What we show. Now, secondly, we also tie shoes, and I said it earlier, but we have to tie them evenly over toward the center line of the human being. There's a video I made about a week ago under the main site of In the Image Clothing Company titled An In-Depth Look. No, I slurred the words because that's not what it's titled exactly. A close look at In the Image Clothing Company's shoelace technique. And I showed it really well. I mean, I've been showing the same thing since the founding, but I made a really good in-depth example of what happens when the weave of the laces actually interact with each other and how that changes what the upper of the shoe does, and you know, and tying of the shoes evenly, and the very starting part of the lacing, how that presses on where our toes meet our forefoot, right? I mean, I really went into it, and the room of the arches of the feet and the angle of the internal rotation traveling into the neutral ankle. I mean, dude, I know what I'm talking about. I'm not trying to prove it to anybody, but I want people to know so that their lives can change. That's the reason we're here, okay? I don't need to prove it to anybody. I know what I'm talking about, and I know what I'm talking about. People don't believe you, and people just don't believe you, right? And that just happens in life. Some people might think you're lying forever about something that you're just telling the truth about. I don't care if you don't believe it, but I want people to benefit from the truth of this. And so you need to take it into consideration before that can happen. Otherwise, you just dismiss it. All right. So, secondly, though, in addition to shoelacing, our other prerequisites been the same since the founding of In the Image Clothing Company, removing all tags. Anywhere in clothing, even in the tongues of the shoes or anywhere inside them, they're just changing the body's workings. They're not letting the body work. That's it. That's the same thing worded differently. I'm just not going to explain it further right now. I've said it so many times, and you know, I'll keep saying the things that I keep saying because that's the point of saying them, is for people to hear it. But there you go. Okay. Now, the big thing is, it's just not always going to look this way. Okay, now we're in the discussion. I know we're like close to 50 minutes into this episode, but that's just, dude, this is just what it is. I'm here to do what I'm here to do. And like I just said, I mean, if you don't take the information into consideration, then you can't benefit from it. And if I don't explain things as thoroughly as they need to be explained, then you might just not understand them. The whole point of In the Image Clothing Company is for the human body, to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ, to have healthy dogs, and there you go. I mean, I make good music as well, right? It's just about letting things be what they are in a world where everything's getting altered. Talk about clothing terms, right? Our bodies are what's getting altered by our lifestyles, man. It's nuts. I'm just saying, dude, it won't always look this way. It won't always be this way. The title is, it won't always be like this. Our videos won't always look the way that they do, but all these foundational videos, a lot of the ones that I just referenced on the main site of In the Image Clothing Company, they're as long as like where we're at in this episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, 131 right now. You know, this is 48 minutes, 33 seconds is what it's telling me right now, as I said that. This is how long so many of those main site of In the Image Clothing Company videos are. And I don't expect people to just sit through every one of those long videos to get all the information from them, but then they're there forever. And as we talk about things going on, and a lot of videos are shorter, you know, as time progresses, those videos will always be the foundational videos. They'll be the, hey, I was saying these things at the very start, and now I'm like, you know, let's say one day I'm like 85 and saying the same things because it's just the truth. Nothing I ever decided, nothing that I have a say over, but I understand it. And I'm like, yeah, look, when I was 24, well, actually I've been 25 the entire time we've had In the Image Clothing Company. But when I was 25, even clear back in the year 2024, I was saying the same things, grandkids, as I'm 85 years old sitting in a rocker, right? This is no joke. And so that's what I mean, is those videos, that's not how it's always going to look. as far as the videos being structured like that, but but they're there, and they will always be valid. Not only in my lifetime, not only in this modern world, not only in this generation, but literally forever, because it's just about the way the human body operates, and it will never change. Designed in the image of God, it's just what it is. A mechanical machine placed onto a rock in space for our spirit bodies to dwell within and go across the earth. That's it, right? Let me just brush the drywall and the brick material off my knuckles, because you probably think I'm so upset. I'm just going to go kill some insect, right? No, I'm passionate, bro. I'm not mad about something. I just yell a lot. I got a loud bark, dude. Yeah, I do. I love standard poodles too. It's a big dog. The bigger the dog, the louder the bark. I'm 6'2", bro. I don't know what's going on with all that. I think we needed a little bit of a break in a comedic way, right? And that's what happened. So, it's not always going to be like this. It's just not. And I know that, and I've known that since the founding. And I think that's what's crazy about it too, is I'm not expecting to continue to make videos that are like, well, the podcast episodes, they can be as long as whatever. It's a podcast. And that's the point of podcast, is something to just really sit there and listen to for a good amount of time. But as far as the videos, main side of In The Image Clothing Company, In The Image Clothing Company Poodles, and In The Image Clothing Company Music, but those already are quite short. It's normally just the length of whatever song I'm playing, right? Or whatever freestyle I'm doing. But it's just not always going to look like this. But what I'm saying is things will change. The presentation, the approach, and the delivery, those type of things. The place that I live, and I will actually have poodles, and we will actually have In The Image Clothing Company clothing available to purchase, and I will actually be wearing it rather than just talking about it, wearing other designs that I've had to modify, right, from other people. So it's not always going to be like this. It's just not. And things will blossom. But this is what I mean. My hands aren't always going to be like this. It won't always be like this. Is the title. My hands aren't always going to be this different in size left to right. And so my body can just work better at that point. And then I'll be able to just approach things even differently. It's been hard for me to just even operate, dude, and do things. It's been uncomfortable and painful and crazy for me to even just try to live. And I want to say that in the way that I mean it. Like, it's been nuts, dude. I'm just trying to do anything with my body the way that it is and has been through this adjustment period of physical functioning. And it's crazy. There's a lot of context I've given on a lot of physical things. I've had 6 heart surgeries. 2 of them were full open heart surgeries. My entire sternum, which I talk about often, being the center line of the human being, has been cut in half twice, opened up, and operated then, is what my heart had done to it. Yikes, right? And then they closed my rib cage back up and titanium wired it back together. So I've been through some big things, and my body has just had to adjust from, not necessarily that, but just, there is a lot of stuff that's happened in my body. And, like I was talking about, using a cell phone that was flat, and now I show, just to put a little bit of rounding to the rear of it. Our fingers should be together when we use them. They only ever work in line, and my right hand just can't. And so that's, when I was learning how to actually set up guitars, the only way the human hands could ever work, that's why it was so hard for me. That's why this is my 21st guitar. That's why I broke guitars and threw guitars away, and I was going through hell, and all the things that came, right? I mean, there's a lot of things that has happened in the past couple of years in my life. I'm not complaining. I'm just giving context, because it's happened for a reason, because everything happens for a reason. There's an episode of In The Image Clothing Company podcast titled You Never Know. You just never know what people are going through. And I was going through a lot. I just have been and just am in the times that I act out. I don't want to act out, I'm a pretty good kid, if you will, but that's self-proclaimed, so who cares, right? If I'm saying it, but I've been going through stuff, bro, and I don't know how to deal with things sometimes, and so I do my best, There's stuff like this that you can just visually see. It's like, oh yeah, dude, your hands are just such different sizes. Like, what in the world, Look,
I can wrap my fingers backward, like my pinky and my index finger, and they can stay together here on my left hand. If I try to do it on my right, everything just like splays apart all weird. There's just excess bone. I mean, it's visual. It's obvious, and you can see it. It's just there, dude. It's just what it is. Things are just only what they are. And so I've just been going through it. And here, where my collarbone meets my sternum at this, insertion of the sternocleidomastoid, just all the scar tissue right in here. And a lot of that could be from my surgery. I mean, yeah, it was like a probably 8 to 10 inch plus scar right here, where they cut me in half. Literally, cut me in half. That's not some type of like magic trick type of thing. They literally did, right? I mean, I've been through some major stuff. And so it's just not always going to look like this, bro. I talk about stuff that just hasn't happened yet, and it just will. I don't believe nothing. I'm not making claims. I'm making plans. I mean, but really, I'm just following God's plan. It's crazy. So just know, right? I mean, in the Image Clothing Company, because we'll have a team and we'll have a proper website and we'll have products and we'll have advertisements and it'll just be good, dude. I mean, it'll just make more sense to whoever's on the other end of this as it goes, because it makes sense to me right now. Meaning I understand that things just have to happen as they do, and things change, and I'm growing, and it's not something that I can rush. And I keep saying that to God. I'm like, man, just making sure like, is there any way that I, because the big thing is you don't want to, try to be doing something and not be doing it in the most ideal way and just be missing something. But every time I pray, God's like, yeah, no, everything that you've done has had to be done. All the, ways that I've approached adjusting things in my body and all the ways that I've been approaching in the Image Clothing Company content. And, my life right now, I haven't had a job in the past 3 years, living here and all the things and the ways that things have been and not doing things that might, logically or like through a worldly lens make sense, but because I just know what I'm supposed to do. Every time I pray to God and just say, Father, am I approaching this correct still? Is this really the right way to do this? Every single time I get the answer, yes, regardless of how uncomfortable I am with it. So we'll just see, all of us, right? The fruits of the labor. That's something I say often. It's in scripture. You have to do the work before the fruit can come. You have to put in the labor to groom the tree and water the tree, feed the tree, and plant it initially, like founding in the Image Clothing Company. It's like planting the tree. And then all these things that I've done up until now, it's nurturing the tree, and then we can all partake of the fruit once it has grown. But in a sense, it's me that's growing, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. And in order to be